All right, so today's movie review is the film Murder from 1930 from Alfred Hitchcock. And so let me give you some behind the scenes details about Murder. A German version of this movie was called Mary, also from 1931. It was filmed at the same time using the same sets, but with German actors. If you've ever seen Dracula from 1931, they did a similar thing for the Spanish version, and I've reviewed both of those. They're pretty interesting to see the differences and similarities. But this was a common practice when sound films were relatively new, and it's what are called multi-language films or multi-language versions of films. It's not necessarily that it's subtitles or someone dubbing over. No, they made the whole movie, but with a different cast speaking the different language. Some movies had as many as 3 or 4 different languages. So it's the same movie filmed 4 times and sent to different countries. So it's a pretty interesting and very niche and unique concept that didn't last very long because once subtitles came around and dubbing, especially when audio improved, that whole industry of multi-language kind of died out. But this is a film that's another example of that, where there's an English and a German one. And another behind the scenes detail, this is the closest that Alfred Hitchcock made a film with Columbia Pictures. So he directed films for every other studio in America, from Universal, let's see, Columbia, RKO, and Warner Brothers. Right, but this was the closest he ever did with Columbia Pictures. They did the UK release of the film. So I thought that was pretty interesting that he pretty much worked with every major movie studio. So, yeah. All right, well, now let's get into my thoughts on the plot. So the plot, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I liked it. I like how it seemed pretty obvious to everyone, including us, the audience, that the character here was guilty. But by the end of the film, we kind of see how it all unfolds and we actually learn who really is guilty. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It's a twist of what Hitchcock would always do. It's like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, this chick is so guilty. Well, there's no way she isn't. And the way it's presented, you're like, how is she innocent? So it's a pretty interesting plot. And I won't get too much into it just because I want you guys to see it too. But I thought it was really cool. The only issue I really have is we spend a lot of time deliberating and hearing about stuff. I would have liked to actually seen more of it. See more of her in jail, for example. She has like 10 lines in the entire movie, and she's all over the marketing, all over the posters, and she's in like 2 or 3 scenes, if that. This being one of them, pictured here. I would have liked to have seen more of her. But other than that, I really liked the plot. I thought it was good. All right, let's move on to the acting. So the acting, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was good, not great. The actor for Sir John Menier, who's pictured on the right there, he was okay. He's kind of the main character, I would say. But he's introduced way too late into the movie. I kind of wish the way it was structured was we're in the courtroom and the jury's deliberating, and that's where we're introduced to him. Kind of like in 12 Angry Men, because he's kind of that juror who kind of questions everybody else. There's a couple more too, but he's the main one who questions it. I wish we started out there, then we see kind of everybody's perspective, but told in flashback. That would have been much more of a Hitchcock style film. But instead, we just get a lot of dialogue, a lot of talking about things. And to me, the acting wasn't super great. That kept me super interested. So I didn't love that. And so that's why I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I wish there were better actors to keep me more intrigued and more interested. Looks like we got a chat here from Jacob Ironside. Good evening. Good evening, Jacob. Thanks for coming by. So let's move on to directing. So directing, I gave it 4 out of 5. I thought it was good. I thought many of his tropes were kind of shown in this movie, such as everyone being against Menier in the juror deliberation scene. That was good. Or he was the only one who believed that she was the innocent one, like everybody against one person, right? I thought that was cool. And I also like the camera work that was done. The close-ups of the characters are very interesting in a way that he's known for. But I would say this is not his most suspenseful film. If we saw more shots of the girl in prison, maybe more of like the gallows and all that, we just get like one quick scene of that. I would have liked more to kind of build up the tensions, like, holy cow, she's going to die if nothing happens soon, right? Add a lot more intensity. Kind of like in The Man Who Knew Too Much from 1956 or 7, where everything's crescendoing up, like the guy's about to clang his cymbals as the guy's about to shoot the ambassador and all of that. That tension is what I think was missing from this movie. So yeah, that's why I gave it 4 out of 5. Not a Fed says, had an old coworker that said he was a descendant of Alfred Hitchcock. No idea if he was truthful or not. He likes ska music, if that is of any weight on his statement. Oh, that's funny. Like Oingo Boingo? Like, I mean, Oingo Boingo's fine, I guess, but that's funny. It's kind of a weird thing to lie about if he was lying about that. Because, I mean, I don't know. Why would you brag about something like that? I guess Alfred Hitchcock would be a fun one to brag about, though, because he's a pretty interesting and prolific director. So that's interesting, not a Fed. All right, let's move on to the cinematography and special effects. I give that a 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was amazing, especially the close-ups like the one here. We get like a back and forth shot between her and the John Meniere character. I thought that was really interesting. A lot of the voiceover work was really good. It was very Hitchcockian. Like even this shot right here, I think Hitchcock used again in Dial M for Murder. Like it looks almost exactly like this. This movie is very, I would say, loosely similar to each other, but pretty similar premise. I also love the scene where everyone is asking Sir John about different parts of the case and how he needs to prove his point, how he thinks she's innocent. They're all kind of ganging up on him in different voice over and whatnot. And it's very interesting editing and whatnot to kind of terrorize him. It kind of feels very claustrophobic, like everyone's coming in around him to see their way. And I love that. I thought that was very, very interesting visually and really good use of editing. There isn't a whole lot, but these scenes really stood out to me. So that's why I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. All right, next is the music. Music, I give it a 3 out of 5. It was okay, not great. It's not very suspenseful. And I think that helps a lot in his later films, especially with Bernard Herrmann, or the score kind of builds up the tension and whatnot. This movie doesn't have that at all. I wish there was more of that. Like I said, it didn't feel very suspenseful, even though this is labeled as a thriller and whatnot. And it is a pretty thrilling story of a character who could be, executed at any second, right? I don't think he had that fully fleshed out yet, because this is still one of his earlier films. I want to say his like 12th or 13th film, which is a lot, but still one of his earlier works, not like his later works. So that's why I give 3 out of 5. All right, so tallying that all up, that brings my Letterboxd score to a 3.8 out of 5, which I'm rounding to a 4. That brings my critic list score to a 76%. So would I recommend this movie? Yes, but like the movie Blackmail, I would only recommend this movie to people who are already fans of Alfred Hitchcock. This is not one I would use to introduce people to it, because it's not his full use of suspense yet, or music, or any of the things that he's really known for. This is just the beginnings of it. I think once you've seen, like I've seen 16 of his movies, or actually 17 counting this one now, 17 of his movies, this one I could appreciate a lot more than I would say someone who hasn't seen any. So before you check out this one, I recommend checking out his later work that you hear about a lot, like North by Northwest, Psycho, although I haven't seen that one. Sorry, everyone. I'm going to at some point. Rear Window is a good one. Vertigo is another good one. Check out those ones first and then come back to this one. So then you could kind of see, oh, this is where he started and this is how he ended up. And so with that, those are my thoughts on Murder 1930 from Alfred Hitchcock.